Welcome to the first episode of Teachers Hate Apples, where we peel off the skin of that messy, hilarious, and surprisingly heartwarming world of education. Today we ditch that dreaded red fruit and focus on something far more nourishing. My good friend Glenn, seasoned teacher of 30 years and second grade teacher of 12. Glenn, welcome to Teachers Hate Apples.
Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being my guinea pig, my first victim here. So, I really appreciate that you're able to, stay after school late and help me out with this project. And it's actually not all that unusual for you to stay after school.
Right.
Right? We both kind of stay till 4:35ish most nights. So thank you for taking that time out and focusing on this. So I wanted to just kind of get a little sense of what your background is. I know we talked about you had 30 years down and you teach second grade, but what else have you done in those 30 years?
My first year, when I was hired in this district, I taught third and fourth grade multi-age, which was exciting but challenging. And then 17 years teaching third grade, and now this is my 12th year teaching second grade.
12 years of second grade, wow.
Yes.
So I dabble in with second grade a little bit here and there throughout the day, and it's one of my favorite grades that I go into. So I could definitely see why you would want to stay in there for 12 years.
They're young enough to hang on your every word, still want to please you, which I love, but they're also at that age where they're becoming more independent.
Any preschool experience?
No, even in college, substituting before I got this job years ago, never had pre-K, kindergarten, or first grade.
Wow.
So second grade is the youngest I've ever taught.
That's interesting. Well, pre-K, they need some hand-holding there, so I've done that. So I just wanted to kind of dive in a little bit more about why you became a teacher, and did you have any meaningful school experiences growing up that kind of persuaded you one way or the other? Or
Well, I grew up in Rotterdam, New York, and went to Mahonison. And elementary school, it was very similar to the school that we teach in, but there were only 2 teachers per grade level. There was a great sense of community. Everybody knew everybody. Teachers, parents, kids all kind of hung out in the community, so it was very close-knit that way. So I knew I always had a love of wanting to please the teacher as a kid. Mm. And then as I grew up, I kind of got away from teaching, but then I actually studied geology in college, and I ended up hating it. I didn't want to see another rock in my life. Ah. And then I sat down with my roommate one day. I remember we're on the bed and we're looking through the blue course book, just going through alphabetically, and it said education, and I just said, stop. Elementary education, that's it.
That's really interesting.
It was like some voice in my head said, that's what you should be doing. And a lot of my courses carried over to it, and I just felt so much better choosing that as my major. So I was able to graduate on time. And
so did you do an accelerating program or summer?
No, a lot of my science courses.
Oh, they did. I thought you said they didn't title.
No, they did. Everything just kind of worked.
Oh, good.
I was able to graduate on time and do my student teaching and all that. So,
did you get your master's later on, or right after?
I worked for I think 2 years here, and because I had 5 years to get my master's, so I worked on it part time, summers. Yeah. Some semesters while I was teaching, and then I finished it just in time.
Just in
within
time.
The 5 years. So that was in reading, master's in reading.
Oh, in reading, great. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. Did you have any teachers growing up that really stuck out, either positively or negatively?
It's all positive, and basically it's mostly elementary. When you asked me that question, first teacher that popped in my mind was my kindergarten teacher, Pam Hayner. God bless her. She's pushing 80 years old now, and I haven't seen her in a few years, but about 10 years ago, I reached out to her. I was able to get her number. We'd go to lunch a few times a year, and Same hairstyle as 1976 when I had her in kindergarten. But
Oh
just
my
to
God.
hear her take on the other teachers in our building at that point, at that time, the principal, and just what she thought about education, I loved picking her brain.
Yeah.
So she's definitely been a really big influence on me. And then my third grade teacher
Hmm.
um, from Pinewood Elementary. Um, Both teachers love to bust on me and just kid with me, and I
Yeah.
notice that's what I tend to do as an adult teacher now with my students.
Right.
I love to kind of bust on them, and I have a different sense of humor, and I'm very much like those two ladies,
Yeah.
actually, those two teachers, actually, now that I think about it. Never realized it, but it kind of comes full circle.
It really does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had one teacher, actually two different teachers, and they were both English teachers in middle school, and uh, not that's just a coincidence, but they both called me Al, and I hate Al. I absolutely hate it. But somehow, just the way they were doing it, and it was just, it was like endearing, and you could tell that they respected me.
Mm-hmm.
But ironically, they weren't calling me by the name that I liked. But then I didn't mind getting called out.
Mhm.
Not even my parents. I would never let anyone call me out. So it's interesting how, it just people can make a really big impact. And I try to think that every day when I'm teaching, I can make a really big impact in a student's life. Hopefully it's positive, but sometimes it might be negative, and we have to really be careful what we say, how we say it, so we're not leaving scars.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of meaningful relationships, wow, that worked out perfectly. Didn't actually plan that one, but what do you do in your classroom to go above and beyond to develop those meaningful relationships with your students?
The word that popped in my head I just thought of was trust. I always want my students to feel really comfortable to make mistakes, to take risks. And I don't know how many years ago it was. I woke up one day and I realized, 'cause after I taught third grade for years and now second grade, you tend to kind of know what misconceptions the kids will have, what mistakes they're going to make. So I just thought, you know what, I've never had an Oscar as a student before, so what I do now in a funny way is I'll just remind the kids, when I'm teaching them a new concept, Oscar, this imaginary, second grader, usually isn't thinking clearly or rushes, and he'll come up with this idea or this answer, but let's not try to be an Oscar. If you are, it's
Right.
okay, but let's learn from our mistakes. So
Right.
a lot of times, whether it's their behavior or how they're sitting, behaving in class, whatever they're doing at their desks, if I think it's an Oscar mistake, I'll usually mention it that way, and the kids will kind of giggle. And I notice ever since I started doing that, they're freer with taking chances.
That's really
They
interesting.
know that
Wow.
it's okay. We all make. I
Yeah.
always tell them I make
Right.
mistakes. I
Yeah.
am reading maybe a page, and then all of a sudden I blank out and have no idea what I just read. So I'm very transparent, I guess is
Right.
the word. Saying we all make mistakes, kids. As
Right.
long as we learn from them, just do your best.
Right,
That's
so
all I
you
ever
show that
ask.
you're human too,
Mhm.
and and you explain that you've been doing this for a long time. And,
Right.
Students, all my years of teaching have been making mistakes, and they survive.
Right.
They make it. Right. Okay, that's really cool. Might have to
Thanks.
pick that tip up. But so I know we talked about what you do, but why is it so important to build that relationship, to let the kids feel that they can make a mistake and it's okay? What's the why behind it?
To prepare them just for the rest of their life. I always tell them, before you know it, kids, you'll be going on to third grade. You'll be, 20 years old, 30 years old, and hopefully if you can still remember how you felt while you were in this room, some of the things that I taught you, good life skills, I'm always focusing on the future and what they need
Yeah.
to know. So if they have that trust with me, I notice what comes next usually is then they especially the kids who weren't as motivated the year before, when they trust me and know that, I mean what I say what I mean, and they can take chances in here, they're
Yeah.
more motivated. And it's like almost like a light bulb goes off, and I'll hear from, some parents or from some colleagues saying, wow, what was so different this time? And I'm always saying I have a bag of tricks like everyone else does. If
Yeah.
something doesn't work, okay, what's plan B, plan
Right.
C?
Yeah.
And I just
Go
keep
all the way
trying
down the
different
alphabet
things. Yeah.
some days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it goes to Z.
Yeah.
But
Right.
with some little angels.
Double
but-
A.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So how do you, this isn't on our list of questions, but how do you make sure that carries on with the kids? Because, kids leave second grade, they go on to third grade. They have a whole new teacher, a whole new group of students that they have to work with. How do you, and it may not even be possible, but what's your thoughts on how you get them to really remember that and generalize it as a third grader next year?
I mean,
Because you have no control over
obviously,
the
I
other
don't
class
know
you're
about
in.
all the kids, but I'm lucky enough, I guess, to have, some kids. Actually, I had 3 third graders that I had last year come and visit me this morning and say hello. And quite honestly, 1 or 2 of them, I would never, I just for some reason didn't think they would ever come back,
Right.
but they did.
Yeah.
And they felt really comfortable, and I'll ask them, like they came in right before they had to go back to their classroom, and they were watching me doing the same things that I did with them the year before. So I was asking them, hey, I said, can you tell, my class now what to do? And they're kind of joking with the kids and with me. So between having kids visit me, having teachers, I've had teachers, third grade teachers and parents of those kids tell me.
Right.
Actually, years ago, I had a parent say, thank God you still do like Friday folders and class cleanup, because ever since then, my daughter cleans her room every Saturdays, and she has more of a routine. She's more organized. So that's one of the things that I've heard most often over the years is I just happen to be,
Right.
organized, because that's how my brain
Yeah,
has
this
to be.
room is immaculate, like looking around.
Thank you. But
It's
that's
like-
just, I
Right.
can't have
Yeah.
organized chaos. That works
Right.
for others, but for me.
Yeah.
So I find that, especially for those kids who need some kind of organization or routine, just the way I am seems to match
Yeah.
them very well. So I'll hear that from the kids, the parents, and then
Yeah.
teachers. So you hear certain things over time, and it makes you feel good that at least you're doing
Yeah.
something right. That's long lasting, longer than
Right.
just when they're with me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I generally want to just kind of keep this a little short,
Sure.
so people don't lose interest too quickly. Not because of you, but for me, because I'm not that interesting of a person. So I just wanted to mention COVID. Obviously, that is still on people's mind. COVID really impacted the world, and especially the education system and schools. What personal changes in the classroom did you have, or what did it affect, or how did it affect it, I guess? And obviously the cleaning and the social distancing is something, but the bigger impact on the schooling system, I guess, than that
Technology.
technology.
And ironically, before the pandemic, I was scared to death of a lot of just anything technological. I never gave myself enough credit.
Yeah.
Because I need something, especially with technology, I need time to delve into it. But then all of a sudden, March 2020 happened, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to now have a Google Classroom. I've got to do this, this, and this. And I mean, it basically took a pandemic
Yeah.
to get me to get on board with technology. And ever since then, I mean, for the most part, I love it when it works.
Yeah.
It's kept me even more organized, and it's kept actually the kids more responsible and accountable for their work.
Yeah.
Just the way I use certain things on my screens, and but I try not to 100% of the day is not on a screen. I don't want that for the kids or for me.
Yeah, it's not good for anyone to just be
Mm-hmm.
glued to the screen. And I mean, there's definitely ways that you can be creative with technology, but there's a fine line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to use it all the time either. I love technology, but you know, good paper pencil sometimes is the way to go. So this is I want to shift to another topic that's pretty well known in the media. Unfortunately, there's a lot of school violence in our country, and it's something that I personally struggle with. Coming to school, I'm worried that there may be a day when I can't keep these kids safe, and it scares me, and I'm really anxious about it. But there is a fine line between, telling the kids that, if they aren't super quiet during a lockdown, like there's a possibility that, they may be killed. Obviously we don't say that to second graders. We don't want to scare them to death. But so do you have any advice for me and for other people that are, very nervous about the situation and the climate?
I guess I don't think about it too much. Maybe that's naive on my part. I don't know, but I know at this level, usually, like when the kids have to stay in our room and we have to lock the door, we say things like, there might be a skunk in the hallway or some kind of odor that we have to keep out of our room.
Okay.
I mean, I totally agree with you, Alex. Like, it's sad to have to think of snipers and things like that, but I think there's also a fine line between watching the news too much as an adult, but not too much, especially if you're sensitive about all that kind of stuff. I'd like to think that all the administration, everybody in our district, the community is, the law enforcement is doing their best to keep us safe while we're here. Doors are locked and things like that. So, as much as I love to control things, I guess maybe ironically, this kind of a thing I don't worry about because maybe in the back of my mind I know I can't control it. So while I'm here,
there's nothing you can
I'll do my best to
control
teach
it.
and protect the kids. But that's all I can do.
Right. No, I also wonder if it's more of a generational thing too.
Younger folks,
for younger people,
that unfortunately is like more of your normal
it's
than
more normal
for
us,
50s and 60-year-olds.
Exactly. Right.
Definitely.
Like my school, I wasn't there yet. I was in the middle school, but a local school around here, there was a shooting and a teacher got hurt. I wasn't there, but I was scared to go into high school. That year, I missed it by a year or two. So, but yeah, so I just you never know what's gonna happen, and so I wonder if, just like you said, like wasn't as common when you were just starting out teaching, but it was fairly common when I started 10 years ago, and so
I think Columbine was in
the
the
late
late
90s,
90s
right?
and I was already teaching here for about 5 years
Okay.
when that happened. So that was the first big thing
That was
that
kind
I
of
know.
the breakout. Yeah. So, yeah, it can get to be scary. But, well, let's end on a happy note. What's a success story that, that maybe that you might, brag and share with family members or friends? Like, this was really hard. It was a difficult puzzle to figure out, but, man, you should have seen the kid how happy he was, or that light bulb, come off, light up, or, something. In 30 years, there was nothing that was like, wow, like, I'm awesome. Like, that was difficult, but I did it.
Usually, it's the kids that are the neediest behaviorally or academically, and I've relied or depended on other colleagues to help me figure out, like you said, a puzzle, to figure out what makes that child's mind tick. Because I've always, if I weren't a teacher, I really think I'd be like a psychologist, because to show empathy and to understand everybody on a world level. I want to know what makes you tick, and then I'm less judgmental, and I'm take a more humanistic view of everybody. So that's what I try to do with my students. So you actually, I think when you asked me that question, the first thing I thought of was, it's actually the opposite of tooting my own horn. It's usually you're thinking you're banging your head against the table and I'm not making a big difference. But actually what happens, like I'll hear from the next year's teacher for that student, and they'll say something like, I don't know what you did, but thank God because you're really, a school psychologist, or those kind of staff members who know all the kids and know all of us, will say, you're a miracle worker. I don't know what you did, but keep doing what you're doing. So it's kind of those surprises, I think, where I didn't think I was making such a big deal, because I'm just in my room all the time doing what I can with my 18 kids. But then when I release them to next year's class, or if they get pulled out by other teachers and they're seeing what I'm doing, that's I think when I feel the proudest, because I'm not realizing, I guess, often what positive influence I'm having.
Right, you're not aware of the impact.
I'm just doing what I can.
Right, yeah.
And thinking, like all of us do, it's probably not enough, but then others say, keep doing what you're doing. So it's those kind of kids, whether it's a behavior plan or getting them the services they need academically, helping them feel successful on a test when they didn't think they would pass it. Usually like with math facts, working their tails off on certain facts, and then they finally pass adding and subtracting, and now they're on to, multiplication, and they never thought they would. It's the little things like that. I think
I feel like sometimes it doesn't take much. And then, like you said, the surprise. I've noticed that before too. I'm like, wait, or maybe the student was, wait, you were actually listening to me? Like,
yes,
you actually did what I said.
They were at all.
I didn't think you were on the same planet, let alone okay with what we just talked about.
I find that out most often in parent conferences.
Yes.
Parents will tell me, oh yeah, little Johnny or little Susie said this. I would say, what? I didn't even think Johnny or Susie even, was paying attention that day, and they were. So
that's so funny.
So it's just not realizing the impact you're having, just on a daily basis, really.
Yeah.
It's not some
never know.
earth-shattering, thing that I'm doing. It's just
you're just being you.
Keep on keeping on.
Being the best teacher you can be every day. So that's all we can ask for. So. Well, hey, this was fun.
Thank you so much for asking me. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad you were my guinea pig.
Sure.
Good guinea pig to
Hope they get only better than this.
Right? So I think this is pretty good.
Yes.
I might go back, 5 years from now, if this actually takes off, and be like, oh, that was rough. But
I'll be long gone by then from teaching.
I was gonna end with that. Like, so you got another 20 years to go? 20 years?
2 years.
All right.
No.
20 years. I'm gonna add that zero.
Call me back in 20 years, and I'll tell you some more stuff. But
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. That was Glenn. He taught for 30 years so far, second grade for 12 years, and we just had a great conversation. So thank you so much, Glenn, for being my guinea pig, and it was great to have you on. And that is why teachers hate apples, because there's a lot that we got to do. Thank you for joining us on the first episode of Teachers Hate Apples. Big shout out to Glenn. Thank you so much for being my guinea pig, and thank you for sharing those wonderful stories full of wisdom. If you liked this first episode, share it with all your teacher friends. If you didn't like this first episode, share it with all your teacher friends. I'm Alex, and I'm very excited to announce that we have more episodes coming soon.